Well, hi, this is Janine K. Brown, and welcome to the Untoxic Boss. Today, we're going to be talking about the impact of toxic positivity, downsides of excessive positivity in the workplace. I bet you did not know that you could be too positive and it could be toxic. So, welcome to another enlightening show. Join us today for this compelling discussion where we tackle the concepts of toxic positivity, an excessive and often inappropriate overemphasis on positive outcomes that can undermine genuine human emotions and adversely affect workplace dynamics. Our guest, Carolina Perez Sanz, brings over 2 decades of coaching experience to explore the subtle ways toxic positivity manifests, its impact on employees' mental health, and how it can disrupt team cohesion. We'll delve into the strategies for fostering an emotional, intelligent workplace that values authentic expression and realistic optimism. Some of the things we're going to talk about with Carolina today is one, what is toxic positivity? The impact it has on individual well being, the consequences it has on team dynamics, and strategies to foster authenticity. But before we bring Carolina up, we want to remind you that we have some resources for you that you can use in your workplace. So, first, we have our article on psychological safety, creating a workplace where all can thrive. And you can find that in the show notes. And also, you can find it below in our comments. So you can just click on that link, check out this article. You can also find other related topics on our website at www.everyday-lead.com. We have a number of resources to help you with high performing team dynamics, also things centered around what we're talking about today, psychological safety at work. So join us. Go out to our website. You'll find these great resources. But now let's get to our topic. I'm so excited. Carolina, welcome to the show. I am so thrilled to have you here with us on the Untoxic Boss podcast.
Hi, Janine. It's so great to be here with you finally after so much back and forth. I'm
Right.
excited.
That's what happens with busy women, right? We out here
Yes.
doing stuff. And so
Yes.
we're trying to get things, trying to schedule, but I am so happy that we've been able to get you here for today's topic. So why don't you tell our audience a little bit about you and what you do?
Yeah. Thank you. I am a coach. I coach people individually, one on one, leaders, creatives, and also I coach teams and relationship systems. And all of the work I do stems or I approach it from a relational intelligence perspective. So if I coach a leader, I coach the leader in relationship with themselves. Like, what are those internal characters that are inside of that leader that are help making them make certain decisions.
Yes.
And if I coach somebody around money, for example, I'm going also to take this relational approach. And of course, when I coach teams in organizations, what I try or what I do, what I work on is to build this cohesion between members that are part of the system. And so I help them see the relationship. That's the work I do.
I love that because I think sometimes we come to work and we're so focused on the what we have to do that sometimes we're so hyper focused on it that we negatively impact the who we're doing the work with. So to hear that your coaching approach is focused on the interpersonal skills and that interrelationship that we have with ourselves and how that manifests when we're interacting with other people. Like we're sisters in this work, right? Trying to create untoxic bosses, trying to create workplaces where all can thrive. And I know there has to be a lot of psychological safety that comes up in some of your conversations. So I have a question for you.
Yes.
What is and if I'm throwing you off, you're a coach. I know you got this. What are some of the big breakthroughs that your clients have experienced when you are working on the inner, like the relational part of their lives, as
Oh,
it kind of relates to the work that they do every day?
yeah. I love that question because one of the first things people usually say is, for example, if I say to them, "Who is telling you that in your head?" They say, "No, it's me." And then I tell them, "Well, it's not you. It's a part of you. What part of you?" So once they're able to identify that we are all like, we have our core self, and then there are other parts of ourselves. Some of them are beneficial to us and are helping us, like we call them allies, but others are just saboteurs. They're trying to keep us safe and stuck and
Mm-hmm.
not growing. So once they are able to say, "Oh yeah, that voice I'm hearing, it's actually not me, it's this saboteur, this gremlin," people say.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that gives people so much freedom and agency. And I think that's super powerful.
Yeah, because we don't always recognize some of the messages that we tell ourselves. We've been telling them for our entire lives,
Hmm.
and we don't even know where they came from, right? No, I used to have this message I told myself that I had to be the best, and excellence was, this place I was thriving for. And I was like killing myself trying to be excellent in how I tied my shoes and how I played. Like, I studied my science, and by the time I got to college, this level of excellence, you get into the workplace, right? It was this message, and I was like, where did I pick this up?
Yeah.
And realizing that in some places, being good enough was enough.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. But also, as women, we are often looked with a double standard. So,
well, that's a whole nother show, Carolina.
exactly.
That's a whole nother show. Well, let's get into today's topic.
Okay.
So, today we're going to be talking about the impact of toxic positivity and the downsides of excessive positivity in the workplace. I'm sure there are people listening talking about toxic positivity. How could positivity be toxic? So, Carolina, tell us, define toxic positivity and how it contrasts with healthy positivity.
Mhm. As you said before, uh, it's an overemphasis on the positive part, right? So it's an emphasis of wanting and willing and the need to be always feeling positive and happy and optimistic. But when that happens, and it's great that we had the little conversation about the parts of selves, when that happens, we are silencing some things that are in our head. Well, it depends. Like, if we are very, very happy, what's true for us is positivity. But if we're not truly happy, we're
Mhm.
silencing this truth in ourselves. And of course, that's a burden on people's minds and soul, I would say. So the difference between this toxic positivity, which is, I'm not going to acknowledge my difficult feelings that I'm feeling right now because I need to show up as super optimistic and positive. When I do that, I am just not being healthy because I'm not being true to myself. Instead, if I'm healthily positive, what I do is I first acknowledge the difficult situation that I'm in, the
Mhm.
difficult feelings that I'm feeling. I see them, I accept them. I say there's nothing wrong with those negative feelings or difficult feelings. And now let me choose something different. But the healthy positivity stems from awareness. Like, I first accept and see all my feelings, and then I say, okay, I know that these negative or very difficult feelings are there, but I choose to feel something else. And that's healthy positivity.
I like that. So, I don't think I always had the language for this toxic positivity I
Mhm.
would always tell my younger leaders that people don't need a cheerleader all the time.
Mm.
We need you, you can't cheer someone into the type of performance that you need, especially if their performance needs to be addressed. So I've always seen leaders say, they were like, well, I don't want to give anybody no bad news. They're afraid of that. And I don't know if I'm just a little biased in my positioning. So I'm going to ask you, why does this happen? Why do you see leaders maybe be too positive to the point that it becomes toxic? Like
Mhm.
what drives that sort of behavior?
I think in the first place, or maybe after the pandemic, where when we have started to have these back-to-back meetings, all everything is a meeting, and we need to cover agendas and think and do things, and people are sometimes all over the place. We are not giving enough space and time for people to really be themselves and get to know other people without an agenda. And that's one of the things that I see happening when, for example, if I were an employee and I were to connect with my leader, because they're so busy, I need to come up with an agenda. So they're not going to give me space to really tell them I'm struggling or I'm feeling challenged by something. And therefore, because the leader is also very busy and is not giving me space to be myself, they're going to want to go to be efficient and to want to go directly into the positive thing. So that's one thing that, yeah, you wanted to ask something. Oh,
No, no, keep going. This is good.
yeah. And I think the other thing is that leaders nowadays, at least some of the leaders I see, are lacking a little bit of maturity,
Mhm.
and they don't want to hear bad news. Like, they're not maybe emotionally intelligent enough. I'm not i'm not saying all the leaders are like that, and I know that a lot of leaders who are like that are coming to coaches like us and are wanting to really develop that. But I see a lot of missing leaders, like they're just doing the 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 purely process work, like they're doing um, the task oriented work instead of leading from a human perspective. That's what I'm seeing. And when I hear employees um, complaining or lamenting the type of life that they're having in their workplace, I see that, like, my leader doesn't want to hear to my struggles.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think a lot of people have forgotten how the workplace has changed, right? So we have about four generations currently in the workplace. You have the
Yeah.
baby boomer, you have the Gen X, you have the millennials, which is a very large population.
Yeah.
And I would even say there are two populations. You have an older millennial that is
Mhm.
40, and then you have a younger millennial that's, younger than
Yeah.
40, but still could be 30, right?
Mhm.
So, you have this group, and then you have our incoming workforce, which is our Generation Zs. And so you see these people who have entered into the workplace in so many different times in history. The baby boomers coming in during a more of a industrial type revolution where working, where men still were primarily the breadwinners and working, and women were not in the workplace, to now women are the majority in college classrooms. They are taking more leadership roles, and they are the head of the household, sometimes even when there's a man there, head from a financial standpoint, right? So the larger breadwinner. So we have all these different dynamics. And I think your point about the level of maturity is so crucial because of these different dynamics. So you might have a baby boomer or a Gen X that could be 53 years old in the workplace, working with someone who's 27, where the 53-year-old never really talked about their personal life in the workplace.
Exactly.
The 60-year-old never talked about what was going on at home. They may give you highlights, right? The kids graduating from school, all of these things. But then you have the 27-year-old and the 30-year-old that's talking about their dating life, their travel life, talking about their parents, what they're doing, they're buying a home. Like they're bringing their whole life, like seriously, their whole life to work.
Yeah.
And I think to your point is this personal part is a lot of our leaders are not equipped to lead the whole person. And
Yeah.
so what they lean toward is being overly positive because they want to keep a culture that doesn't have conflict.
Exactly. And that's, I love that you said that, because avoiding conflict is one of the basic destructors of team cohesion, right? And team high performance. Because if you don't engage in conflict, you are not going to grow as a relationship. We need
Mhm.
conflict in order to
Yes.
grow. So I see that uh, teams that are avoiding conflict because of what you said, like maybe leaders are not equipped to stand emotionally in face of conflict.
Yeah.
When that happens, we have teams that are just, yeah, as I said before, very process oriented, very task oriented, but they're not able to engage in meaningful collaboration and meaningful communication. And that is also uh, that is also very difficult for the employees, I guess.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I know we don't come to work to fight. We don't want to be beefing at work. But I mean, studies show that when there's healthy workplace conflict, people are far more creative, innovative. They feel like their
Yep,
voices can be heard. They can challenge ideas, which is the same definition of psychological safety,
for
right?
sure.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, I
So,
like
oh, this is so good. So this is a great segue into us talking about the impact, this toxic positivity and its impact on our well-being. So,
that.
toxic positivity can impact the individual's stress level, our mental health, overall job satisfaction. So tell us, how does toxic positivity affect an individual's mental health and stress levels at work?
Yeah, a huge deal. Like it's really impactful, because when so one of the principles of systems and relationship systems is deep democracy, for systems to really function well. So deep democracy is, I'm going to listen to every voice in the system, and therefore that system is going to be really transparent, open, and really healthy. But if I go into work knowing that the culture doesn't allow for my difficult feelings, right now, like from the get go, I'm shutting down part of my inner life if I'm feeling stressed or depressed or whatever it is. So, for example, let's say you work in a toxic positive culture, toxically positive culture, and you're going through a very difficult time with your aging parent, and you have to take care of them, and it's very difficult for you, and you're really stressed out. But then that happens at home, and then you go into work and you have to, like, this part doesn't exist right now.
Mhm.
That is horrible. Like, it's very difficult. It constrains our bandwidth. It narrows our creativity. Of course, we're not being whole. And as, for example, Marshall Rosenberg, the creator of nonviolent communication, would say, our needs are our life in action. So if I'm not fulfilling my needs, for example, the need to be honest with myself and be whole,
Mhm.
I'm partly dead inside. So yeah.
Yeah. And, even when as a coach, I always tell my clients, and I don't know if you have the same experience, when they come for coaching and their employer is subsidizing the
Hmm.
cost of coaching, they think that they can come and I'm only talking about work.
Yeah.
right? I'm going to talk about this one thing, right? I'm trying to get promoted, or we're having some team issues, or I'm on a performance improvement plan. Whatever that thing is they come to, they think that they only bring that. But we're whole people.
We're whole
So
people.
yeah, so you find that, oh, maybe my performance is lacking because right now my spouse and I are having some challenges in our marriage, or I have an aging parent, or a child who's misbehaving or ill. There's life happening, and I'm trying to leave that out of both my confidential coaching relationship, but also I'm not bringing it to work. And so people cannot support me because they don't know what I'm going through. And all they're experiencing is the behavior from the stress and
Yeah.
the suppressed emotions.
Yeah. And because you're suppressing so much, it's like you're not even yourself. You're not even fully yourself. Right? It's like you become a zombie a little bit.
Yeah. So
I
what's the oh, go ahead, Caroline.
I was
Caroline.
going to say that I had the experience one time that a person wanted me to coach her only in her life. And as we started to speak about what was going on in her life, she didn't want to touch work. She expressed a very deep and difficult frustration that she had with her own leader at work. And so I was like, okay, we have to go there. And she was no, 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 no. She was very upset. She didn't want to touch that. Well, as you said, we're whole people. It's impossible that we fix anything in an area if we don't fix everything in every area.
That's exactly right. And so, and I hope that, our listeners are picking up on that, right? Trying to compartmentalize your life is also, that's the impact on your well-being in a culture that's focused on that is toxically positive, right? And that's it. And so, as we kind of sum up this segment, it's really, focusing on, you have these suppressed emotions, cognitive dissonance,
Uh-huh.
impaired relationships,
Yeah.
and what we don't want, what we really don't want is um turnover. Right? We have this increased turnover because the strain of a toxic positive environment can lead to higher turnover and employees seeking, supportive or more authentic workplaces. Right? Because the one thing you don't want is your employees to call you fake. They're so fake. This isn't real. This is a fake culture.
Mm.
Everybody's happy all the time and bubbly. And that has to be exhausting.
It is exhausting. And now that you're mentioning now that you're saying again culture, something that came to mind was there's there's lately the founder of Netflix has been going around in podcasts, and a lot of people, and he was speaking about we have the culture deck at Netflix, and people were taking that as, oh, I'm going to make a cult or to do a culture deck for my company so that everybody knows what we stand for. Well, if that comes from the top, it's going to be an imposition, and it's going to silence some people, and that is not good. Like every time you try to silence, be it negative feelings, difficult feelings, uh, contrarian opinions, whatever, that is not a healthy culture. So uh, there's a lot. Oh, I can't hear you.
When it comes from the top, I think it feels like a mandate.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I would think. And so I do think your more senior leader should be a part of communicating the culture, right? And what we're looking for and how we want to show up and what some of our core values and our expected behaviors are in the workplace. But I think it has to be a collective conversation where we say, we
Yeah.
talk to our employees. And this is what was important to all of them. And here I am as the messenger, right?
Yeah.
I'm the CEO, I'm the messenger of what you want. so that we can have an open dialogue about it. So,
Yeah.
I think that that's so important. I'm glad you shared that story. So, when other CEOs and, HR leaders and talent development people are listening to today's show, that they think about this, like, who is the messenger of your culture? Who's talking about what is expected in the behaviors and what's rewarded, so that the message doesn't get lost in hierarchy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's
Yeah.
talk about team dynamics when it comes
Sure.
to toxic positivity. How does this impact trust on teams when the team is trying to be too positive and it leans into toxicity?
Yeah. So again, going back to this idea of deep democracy, if you want a relationship system to be healthy, you need to, or we need, if we're in that relationship system, we need to hear all the voices. And when I say voices, I don't mean Janine's voices or Carolina's voices. I mean, all the voices that I have in my head, which are different opinions, different feelings, different attitudes, right? So if I'm shutting down the negative voices because you know, they don't fit with the culture, then a lot of people may be feeling excluded or at least partially excluded. And that's going to have them fear or doubt whether they really fit in that culture, because they're going to be thinking, well, if they want only positivity and I'm not that, or I'm not there all the time, maybe I don't fit here. And because I may not fit here, but I need the job, I'd better like not speak my truth. So I'm not going to be authentic. I'm not going to show up whole. And therefore, it's impossible to build trust with me because I'm not being myself fully. And that is happening to everybody else in the room. So how can you build trust with somebody else if you know that you're not yourself and you know that the other person is not themselves? So yeah,
Yeah. It's impossible,
it's
right? So, I'm glad we're talking about trust, because I think trust is a foundational
yep,
value that teams need,
yep,
and individuals need in their organizations. And
yep,
so you're right. So if I'm faking it every time I interact with you and trying to be who I think you want to be, and I think even when I hear words like, culture fit, like in the interview process, like, we're
yeah,
looking for a good culture fit. Well, that sounds like to me you want me to fit in and be like everyone else. And if the majority of the team are white men and I'm a black woman, I can't be like you.
yeah,
My points of view, my experiences, my lived experiences are completely different.
yeah,
Even with the same type of education and level of education,
yeah,
how I view the work is going to be very different. And I hear often too, like, we want people who are willing to assimilate into the culture. And that's always to me like, well, what does that really mean? You know?
that in itself is so toxic. I mean, I hear that and I run away as far as I can, because that is like, what comes to mind is 1988, 1984, George Orwell's novel, because it's like, oh, either you are or you are not. If you're not, you're out, right?
Yeah.
That is very dangerous, in my opinion.
It is, and especially when we have such a global workforce
Yes,
and you
yes,
have all these different cultures around the world that are working together. But even here in the US, when you have people who are working with on teams that are so diverse, with languages,
yeah,
dialects, the way they were raised, even the kind of foods we eat, right? So, when you have that, then you miss out, I think, on an opportunity to create a team that is rich
yeah,
in inclusion, because we want to be inclusive, and we start using words like assimilate or to get along, because what that does is turn into groupthink which eventually you avoid giving the type of feedback and giving the support, and problems can hide in cultures like that, right? There are issues going on that no one's talking about.
Exactly. And that's actually one of the symptoms that the culture or the team dynamic is poisoned or toxic, because when there are things that people don't want to talk about, that is telling you that something is not working well. And yeah, groupthink, I think, is very, very dangerous. And I get very frustrated because everybody's like, oh no, well, there was this backlash with DEI and all that, but they're like, oh no, we really appreciate diversity and inclusion, and they want a 1 hour workshop to check the box, and then they still do the, yeah, we're looking for a culture fit. How can you assimilate to the culture of the company? Well, first of all, you don't understand diversity. You don't understand psychological safety. You're speaking about it all the time. And maybe, I don't know, so yeah, that gets me a little frustrated.
Yeah, it is a little frustrating. So let's, as we kind of close out a little bit here, what are some things that you've heard people say, possibly, or behaviors that you've seen, so that our listener can distinguish between, is this toxic positivity or is this healthy positivity? So, can you give us some examples or some things that you may have experienced personally, or your clients in your work?
One thing that I think summarizes the toxic positivity a lot is, don't bring me problems, bring me the solution. Like, oh, you're not willing to talk about the problems. Okay, thank you very much. How can I bring the solution? How can I invent the solution if I'm not going to have conversations about the problem with other people? So we know that collaboration and co-creation is more powerful than one single mind thinking about a solution, right? But if we are saying, no, don't bring me the problem, bring me the solution, I'm shutting down this possibility of co creating a solution to a problem. So I've heard that. Also, sometimes, and I think I know it's well intentioned. For example, if they say choose joy, okay, choose joy is fantastic. But have you acknowledged the difficult feelings before? Because if you haven't, then it's toxic positivity. And it feels like when people are like, oh, but choose joy. Yeah, it didn't go well, but yeah, who cares? Let's choose joy. That's not. And something that I experienced with some business partners, and it was very, I mean, I didn't feel particularly well, is that something went wrong. I wanted to do this kind of retrospective to analyze what had happened. And they were like, oh no, this belongs to the past. We don't want to engage. We don't want to dwell in that thing. Let's move forward. Okay, so moving forward without acknowledging what went wrong, I think is also very dangerous, because it leaves people with the feeling that, oh, my feelings don't matter. I'm wrong if I feel that was difficult. And therefore, if I'm wrong, I feel sad, demotivated, depressed.
Yeah. Oh, that is so good. So, those of you who are listening to today's show and you're here with us on LinkedIn, I hope you're kind of reflecting, even maybe on your own behavior. So, what is your relationship with toxic positivity? Are you suppressing your emotions? Um, are you avoiding a possible break in a relationship because you want to keep a strong relationship with people, but it's not necessarily genuine? Are you seeing turnover from people and they're complaining that this workplace doesn't feel authentic? It feels fake. I think Carolina has given us a lot of things to think about, right? Are you uncovering hidden problems? Is there a lack of support on your teams and in your culture? Are there surface level interactions, right? We say hi, how you doing? Fine, and no one's actually engaging in deep, meaningful conversation at work, either about the work through a lens of healthy conflict or just personal relationships? Is there a large amount of groupthink, right? Are you on teams that have worked together for a long time and you view your cohesion as being a strong team? And then finally, are you avoiding feedback? Because,
Yeah.
we don't like feedback and it feels uncomfortable. We think it's always negative, and I think oftentimes it's because we're not giving people true action items in which they can take that feedback and actually apply it to. So, Carolina, this has been a great conversation. I think it's a starting point for people to look at their organizations and say, are we faking positivity?
Mm-hmm.
Are we putting on a good face so that we can be on best places to work, the list of best places to work, or we don't want people to go out on social media platforms and say anything bad about us, but we got all these issues, right? It's bubbling under the surface. Can you tell our listeners how they can work with you, how they can connect with you, so that they can continue this conversation and this work on themselves in relationship with themselves and others?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So they can come to my website. I should have written down the name of my website because it's not very easy to understand. But you can type my name on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn profile is Carolina Perez Sanz. That's it. So I'll be happy to assist everybody on LinkedIn. If they want to shoot me an email, it's Carolina at co-lumina.com, luminacoaching.com. Maybe we can put that in the show notes. And yeah, happy to work with organizations that really want to build thriving cultures.
So if you want to build a thriving culture, please connect with Carolina. You can look in our show notes, and there's also in the links here on LinkedIn how to connect with her on her website and reach her on email. Thank you so much for joining us today, Carolina. Thank you for having us. I'm sorry. Thank you for being here. And everyone, thank you for joining on today's show. We'll be back with another exciting episode of The Untoxic Boss, because we're on a mission to help you not be a jerk at work.